Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Hey there, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode. For those of us in the United States, the IRS tax man is constantly in our pockets every year. Wouldn't you agree? You know, we pray that we receive a tax refund, but if that's not the case, we pray again and dread the final verdict on how much we owe to the federal, state, and city governments in which we all live. You know, one of the rarely discussed but popular tax shelter tools of the ultra wealthy are various types of financial trusts. And on today's show, I am truly honored to have Dohn Thornton, who's the CEO of HB Funding Incorporated, which is a real estate investment firm. Dohn has had such an interesting experience during the pandemic, which actually caused him to pivot to his deep knowledge on trust and capital gains taxes and use that knowledge to build a thriving consulting business. So be sure to listen as he gives us tips on how to keep more pennies in our pockets. And be sure to listen to my closing segment at the end called Karen's Take, where I share a tip on how to use the insights from today's episode to further your leadership acumen. And now, enjoy the show. Hello, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode of the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. Now, today we have an extremely interesting topic on helping you be a stronger leader in your personal finance realm, which is a little bit different than some of the other topics we've featured recently. But we are super honored and excited to have Dohn Thornton, who is a guest on our today's show. Dohn is the CEO of HB Funding, which is a real estate investment firm. But he also had a very interesting experience during the pandemic, which he's going to share with us, where he was able to use his deep knowledge in another area of expertise to really radically pivot in his business. So welcome to the podcast, Dohn. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. This is awesome.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to open that leadership playbook of yours, specifically in the financial realm. But before we get started, would love for you to share, as much as you feel comfortable, a little bit about your personal life and professional journey, like where you were born and grew up, and then kind of highlights of your, professional career.
I had quite a journey, I tell you. I would say that if you wanted to put my life to a movie script, it would be just constant change. And although I'm not a military brat, I feel like in some ways I have the same attributes because we never had any stability in our home. I mean, in 12 years of high school, I went to 11 different high schools. So we were moving. My father was he worked for the Missouri Pacific Railroad, and he got transferred to Omaha. We were in Arkansas, Texas. We stayed quite a while in Missouri, and then in the last 2 years of Omaha, which was enough for me to get out and escape from the corn as soon as I could. But and even after that, I mean, I did a year in Idaho. Then I went to Finland for 2 years, and then I came back to Utah, and then I went to Russia, which was supposed to just be a 2-year journey that ended up being 20.
Wow.
Back and forth, not always there. But yeah, I mean, it's been a situation where I have no roots per se. And, but I mean, I don't know I always felt like I was just an odd duck. I was always marching to the beat of what I was. I didn't even understand the journey, but I knew I was on a journey somewhere. Okay. And there were certain things that stood out with me that drove me, even though I had no idea why. For one thing was I had an obsession to go to Russia and learn the language. No idea why. I mean, it was just one of those things. I mean, literally, when I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to go to Russia and learn the language. Back then it was the Soviet Union. Who knew, right? It was like an unattainable dream, and yet it happened. So and then it was also my dear mother who passed away, I mean, she constantly was telling me, get involved in real estate, get involved in real estate. You will never be happy working for somebody. Real estate's where you need to go. And, I did what most loving sons did. I did this. Okay, mom, whatever. I have my own path. At the time, I was going to go into the State Department, diplomacy, government worker, and so forth. She says, you'll never be happy doing that. You'll never be happy doing that.
Wow.
And God bless her. She was right. She was absolutely right. I went to the embassy for 2 years in '89 when it was still the Soviet Union. When I left, it was Russia, right? And
Yeah,
then
transformed.
everything changed.
Yes.
And the first thing that changed was the fact that I discovered that Russian women are very, very beautiful. And and second of
That's
all,
what I hear.
the embassy didn't like you to date them because for security reasons. As they say on Seinfeld, yada yada yada. I ended up moving away from my career in the State Department and was dumped into an entrepreneurial situation where I got married. So any kind of government work after that was over because I had no security clearance anymore.
Right.
But there was so much opportunity in Russia. I just said, you know what? I'm going to start a business. I had no idea how to do a business, much less Russia. But it started my journey in Russia. I got divorced, got remarried, and I eventually led me to Orlando, real estate investing. And I spent until COVID and until the war started, I spent 20 years flying back and forth, commuting to Moscow, where my family is.
Mm.
So
Wow.
it's been an interesting journey. Let's put it that way.
I bet it does. I mean, of course, Russia's in the news a lot these days for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that I learned, even me personally, over the years, my eyes were awakened into how big a market real estate was
Oh,
for
yeah.
Russian nationals. Real estate in the U.S. was.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining someone like you who knew the language and has those connections would have been thriving in that industry.
I wasn't in the real estate side of it.
Oh, you weren't.
I
Okay.
was more of helping European and American businesses get set up there and working with them and working with
Oh,
that.
interesting.
But my family, we do have. I mean, the real estate came from me later. Once I was established as my real estate investing business in America, I invested a lot of money in Russian real estate. So I don't know if
Mm,
that's necessarily a good decision now, but back in the day, it seemed like it was a good thing. But
sure.
we have about 9 apartments over there. We built 2 houses in central Russia on the banks of this beautiful, pristine, spring-fed river. That's my sanctuary. I would always go there and just spend most of the summer there, and it's this wonderful place. But obviously, I haven't been there for 3 years, so that's I don't know when I'll get back. But we made the decision I was going to go to Russia and retire eventually, or at least run my business from there as I got more into internet centered and not having to be on site all the time. Of course,
Sure.
those uh, those plans are temporarily on hold. Let's put it that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yes, absolutely 100%. And we sold a lot of. I specialize in short sales, so we sold a lot of short sales to Russian investors over the years in Florida.
And for the audience members who don't know what a short sale is, tell them what that is.
Well, that's when a homeowner owes more than what the house is worth, and they can't sell it with a full payoff. Otherwise, they would have to bring tens of thousands of dollars to the table to make sure the mortgage got paid off. So, a short sale is when the mortgage company will allow a buyer like myself to negotiate with them and get them to allow the property to be sold at an as is value. Anything on the mortgage that's left over that's not paid will be written off and forgiven by the mortgage company. The mortgage company pays all the closing costs and commissions for the homeowner. The profit is as is value is kind of they think it's higher, I think it's lower, and whoever wins that negotiations battle. But that
Right.
usually we won, and so we made a lot of money in short sales. But yes, that's what I did.
Gotcha. And so, what happened during the pandemic? Tell a little bit about the story of how you moved into a focus on trust, and then give our audience some information about how they can potentially save on their taxes
Oh,
and improve
sure.
their financial situation.
It's an interesting situation because it's one of these deals where if you get complacent in life and you don't have a plan B, life tends to kick you in the butt eventually.
It does.
I had a good run because
Mm.
when everybody was suffering during the Great Recession, I was making millions, so that was a great time for me. And even when the economy was back and the housing market got hot again, I was still doing amazingly well in short sales. And in fact, in February of 2020, before COVID really bit, I got 25 houses in 1 month in short sale houses, and it was unbelievably good. And I was like, everything's wonderful. And then my main source of leads was the foreclosure filings in the courts all over Florida, shut down for almost 2 years.
Mm.
I was faced with an existential crisis of, after 20 years into this business, how do I make money? How do I make money? And I was able to. Luckily, I had done really well setting up referral sources, and you still had a pipeline. So for
That's
me,
good.
COVID, the consequences of COVID did not bite hard until earlier this year.
Mm.
But I saw it coming. I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. And I had some pretty emotional arguments with my partner who does all the negotiations on the short sale side because she couldn't see it and I saw it. I said, this train's coming and we're gonna get killed if we don't start transitioning to something else now. And I hate to say it, but she's really struggling and I'm not, because she did not see the warning signs, or she just didn't want to do it. She just said, I'm a real estate person. I don't want to do anything else. I said, well, you better have some food storage. You better have some
Yes.
money in the bank to ride this out because you're not going to make it. I know I can't. I have to have income. And so, luckily, it was fortunate that I had something to pivot to, right? And that's this trust. It's called a non-grantor, irrevocable, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust. It's
Okay,
cool.
you have to say that again so people get it. What was that title again?
Yeah, it's a non-grantor, irrevocable, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust.
Okay.
It has been around for well over a century, and not longer than that. When the U.S. tax code was implemented in the 1930s, and this trust was incorporated into the tax code. Okay, and so it is affiliated with IRS Code 643, and the trust has four major advantages. Four major advantages. I guess four. Yeah.
Four.
Yes. Number one, because of the spendthrift provision in the trust, any assets that are inside the trust are basically locked inside a titanium vault of asset protection. I mean, I'm not saying you can't be sued. I'm saying that when it gets in front of a judge, the judge will toss it because they don't have any jurisdiction over a spendthrift trust. Okay, so from that point of view, it's the most powerful asset protection vehicle there is in the country. Second of
Amazing.
all, when you use this trust as the main vehicle for your business or your personal investing, whatever you choose it for, if you have an asset that provides passive income, when that money comes directly into the trust, it is not considered a taxable event, provided that you keep the money, you allocate the money to the corpus of the trust, and you don't disperse to your beneficiaries. Okay, so from a real estate point of view, or from just a personal finance point of view, you got stocks, you have bonds, you may have crypto, you may have forex, any rents on rental properties, whatever. That's all passive income that's coming to the trust. So therefore, you're not going to be paying taxes on that. Second of all, if you have a trust asset, let's say investment properties, could be crypto, doesn't matter. If it's an asset and you sell it, normally that's a capital gains tax event. Well, if it's a trust asset when you sell it, again, it comes into the trust. You allocate to the corpus of the trust. You don't disperse the beneficiaries. That is not considered a taxable event, a capital gains taxable event for the trust. And then finally, the other thing is if you have a business and you're selling something, you're selling a service, you're making income. It's ordinary income for the most part. You could be a 1099 contractor. You could be a commissioned salesperson, like really successful realtors, mortgage brokers, real estate brokers, whatever. They're getting killed on taxes because that's considered ordinary income. If you're above $165,000 a year,
Right.
that's taxed at 32%.
Yes.
So this trust has an amazing strategy with this. Whereas if you have an LLC that you're running your business through that LLC, then what you want to do is you want to sell your assets, your business's assets into the trust. Okay. You also want to make your trust a 90% limited partner in your LLC. And so when you do your business normally, what's going to happen is that you're eventually going to have your net what's it called, the
So
net.
you'd have to refile your articles to the new structure, giving the
Well,
trust 90%.
you would just add the trust as a limited partner. Yeah,
Gotcha.
90%
Okay.
limited partner. So then
Mhm.
when you have your pre-tax net income at the end of the year, that's where an LLC is going to have its, day of reckoning with the IRS as far as how much do you owe. If you have $1,000,000, that's 32%. That's, $320,000 that you're going to have to cut a check for.
Right.
But with this strategy, by adding a lease of those assets that were sold to the trust from the LLC, you're leasing those back to the LLC for money, right?
Right.
And the IRS will allow up to 70% of a business's pre-tax net income to be used as a lease payment.
Oh, interesting. I didn't
So
know that.
if you so on that on the basis of that new expense that we put on there, as much as 700,000 of that $1,000,000 of pre-tax net income for your LLC can be moved over to the trust as a lease payment. Okay, so now
Mhm.
we've just moved $700,000 of taxable income from your
Into
LLC
the
over to
top.
the trust, which you've reduced that now to 300,000. And then
Wow.
remember that by making the trust a 90% limited partner in your LLC, it needs to be paid for that equity position, right?
Right.
So 90% of the remaining 300,000 is going to go over to the trust as a K1 distribution, which means 270,000 goes over to the trust as a K1 distribution. So now you have modified your pre-tax net income by adding these two additional disbursements, or these two additional expenses, from $1,000,000 down to $30,000. So most of your income that's left in the LLC, where you're going to calculate your taxes, is going to be $30,000, not a million, not $300,000. Okay. So meanwhile, the trust has received $970,000, but it's received it as passive income because a lease agreement is passive income for the trust. A K1 distribution is a passive income for the trust as well. And so, because again, it's all these proceeds are allocated to the corpus of the trust, they are not dispersed to the beneficiaries. The trustee, which would be you, if it's your business,
Mhm.
the trustee of the trust, according to IRS Code 643, you can declare all the passive income that comes into your trust as an extraordinary dividend, and it will not be a taxable event for the trust.
So those are just so many nuggets and so
Yeah,
amazing. But why aren't more people using it or know
yeah,
about it?
they don't know about it, and in fact, the biggest thing for me, it's a challenge and it's also a huge opportunity because you have remember who was using this strategy until recently. It was like the Rockefellers,
Yeah, the ultra
the
wealthy.
ultra, ultra, ultra wealthy. I mean, I don't know
Mhm.
if you remember this or not, but Warren Buffett was one time quoted as saying that his secretary pays more in taxes than he does.
Yes, I do remember.
Yeah, and why is that? Because she's getting paid a W-2, and he
Yeah.
can use the same strategy, right, that we just described.
Yes.
And it was always just assumed that the rich people have these pseudo secret strategies that only the very rich can afford to do. You got to have
Yeah.
these high powered lawyers pay $1 million a year to find out these murky loopholes or whatever. When actually it's much more simple than that. Just by this trust and following these strategies, I mean, a heck of a lot more people can use this than just the ultra rich. The challenge is that most CPAs, most financial advisors, it's not on their radar. They still have it's starting to happen. I've noticed in
Right.
the last 3 months, I'm getting more and more financial advisors turning to me. They've seen my videos on social media. Their clients are saying, "Hey, I saw this video. Whatever. I'm interested in doing something like this." It's starting to penetrate their consciousness, but not yet.
But it takes time
Still
for
not there.
in
I
order,
predict.
right?
I predict that in a couple of years, this is going to be the go-to strategy for most people who make, I don't know, four or $500,000 or more. I really believe that because it makes
And do
sense.
you think it's mostly for like those like you and me or business owners, or can this still be accomplished with those that are employees in the workforce?
You can't. It doesn't work with W-2.
Okay, so only those who are
Right.
business owners.
But I
Okay.
will tell you that real estate investors, business owners, and 1099 people are by far the ones that are coming to me because they're the ones getting killed on taxes.
Gotcha.
And
Yes.
and of course, this
Yes.
system works really well. I
Right.
mean, and again, look, full disclaimer here: I'm not a licensed tax authority. I'm not a licensed legal person. I'm telling you, this is informational purposes only. I
Yes.
have a trust. I use these strategies. They work. Always, of course, get licensed professional advice before you enter into any transaction. Having said
Absolutely.
that, I've done this journey. I know the law firm that's had this trust for almost 50 years creates it. I work with the company I'm with. We support it and we promote it and so forth. So, I mean, it's not like someone has got a printing press behind the outhouse, printing out trusts. I mean, this is
Right.
a reputable law firm that's been around for a long time, and it's already been vetted by the IRS. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the biggest things I like about this is that if someone says, "Oh, that can't be true," it's like, okay, let me email you what the IRS document called a trust private ruling letter, and it goes in and shows you how they examine this 643, how that works with the extraordinary dividend that I described. Totally legal. It's just
And
they don't go out and say, "Hey, here's ways you
yeah,
can save money." They're not going to do
they
that.
don't have commercials on it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And what happens when the trust passes to the beneficiary?
It never passes to the beneficiaries. That's the thing.
Okay.
Okay. So the trust has to be renewed every 21 years. Now, in my family strategy, my wife is a beneficiary, my daughter, my son, and my grandson. Now, my wife has been designated as a successor trustee because if something happens to me, then she takes the reins. Okay.
Gotcha.
Our
Mm-hmm.
daughter will be her successor trustee.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so eventually, I hope, I won't be here to see it, but I hope that eventually my grandson will
We'll
become
pass on.
trustee and will keep going and going and going because all this wealth that we can create and we already have is inside the trust. So we never have to worry about estate taxes or inheritance taxes or having a will, anything like that. Everything's done with an operating agreement inside the trust about who gets what. Remember, this is the thing. People get caught on this thinking that, okay, well, the beneficiaries have to receive money. They don't, but they receive value because the trust pays for almost all of their expenses as a trust expense.
Right.
For example, if you have children that are 21 years or younger than 21, anything with education, it's a trust expense. The trust pays for it. Anything having to do with wellness for anybody, any beneficiaries in trust. You go to you could literally fly to Bora Bora and go to a spa retreat, and that's wellness, and that's a trust expense. Okay, the only thing that the trust can't pay for is what they call food, fashion, and fun. Okay,
Food, fashion, and fun.
everything
Okay.
else the trust can pretty much pay for. And then, but here's the brilliance of the strategy. There's no taxable event ever in the strategy because you might say, I know what you're saying. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, what about food, fashion, and fun? How do I pay for that? Right?
Right.
Well, it's simple. You sell your assets when you set the trust up into the trust. And the trust is not paying you money. It's going to give you a note, like an IOU. Okay. When I
Ah.
sold my assets to trust, I've got like $500,000 note that the trust owes me. So if I say, you know what, I need about $30,000 worth of food, fashion, and fun for the next 4 months, trust cuts me a check and then that reduces my demand note from 500,000 down to $470,000, and that's not a taxable
That's how
event.
you do it.
It's not a taxable
Wow.
event because it's a it's like a proceeds from a loan. It's just not it's not an event. So basically, nowhere in the strategy are you having to disperse anybody or pay taxes on it, and it's
Wow.
perfectly legal. Like I said, it's perfectly legal. People just don't know about it. Now, listen, if you want to, so you can disperse to someone. It's just if you disperse, it's going to be a 1099.
Be a taxable event then,
Yeah, that's
right?
all. No big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it significantly lowers what you would pay on taxes. And some people say, "Well, Don, I don't want to move 97% of my business and income because I want to pay myself salary. I want to get loans. I want to have good credit." fine. Then only do it 70%.
And it's your personal
Was more.
choice on
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah, but I'm just
That
saying
makes
you can
sense.
go that far if you want. For me
Mhm.
personally, I made that choice because if you look at my personal tax return, I could easily qualify for food stamps.
Mm.
I don't, but I don't need credit. We already have our real estate. I'm not. I only buy things for cash. So and who can? I mean, you know how attorneys are. If there's any kind of issues, if for whatever happens, they're going to look at my, do I have any assets to go after? No, I don't
Yeah.
have anything. My position as trustee for the trust is they can't come after me for anything as trustee.
Right.
They can't get to the assets in the trust,
So
so
they have nowhere to go.
they know where to go. Exactly.
Hmm.
The beneficiaries are all protected inside the halo of the trust.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely one of the most brilliant strategies I've ever heard of. But I tell you what, I mean, getting back to the theme of your podcast here is I know that you asked me before about what leadership tactic was something that I liked. And
Resonated with you.
it was
Yes.
great, courageous agility. And I tell you why. And I'm gonna, and now listen, I'm throwing my partner under the bus here. I apologize, but
We
it's
love you, partner, but this is for learning purposes.
it's a teaching moment, right? If you don't have confidence in yourself and your judgment, and that so many people doubt themselves, but I have learned over the years that, just to show you, I mean, when I was in Russia and the last project I had, it died a natural death, and I knew at that time that there was no more money in Russia for me. The Russians, Putin was in power. They're pushing all the expats out, trying to make it get the Russians in and everything. I knew. I told my wife, I said, I can't make it here anymore. We're not going to make any money here, And so I left him, in Russia with her parents, and I went back and I said I'm going to do real estate because I knew that because my mom's voice was in my head, right? And
Of course.
and I didn't want to be I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. I was sick of it. So everything that happened from the time that we made the decision for me to leave Moscow and and go to Orlando and just basically start from scratch. And one of the arguments my wife and I and my mother-in-law had, because you're gonna fight with your wife, you're gonna fight with your mother-in-law too, right?
Right.
They were all saying that the things I did were failures because it took me 2 years minimum to get my first closing. Okay, and I tried different things and they didn't work. Here's the most important lesson I learned, and it gave me unshakable faith in myself, in my in and the path I was on.
What's
Is
that?
when you turn around and you look at the path that you went from the time you made that decision until now. Every single failure was crucial to get me to where I landed. If I
I
had
believe
not
that.
gone through that, I wouldn't have landed where I was. Okay. So I had that unshakable faith in me when I had to make a decision, when my gut was telling me I need to diversify now and start working now, or I'm going to, by the end of the year, it's just scary how that worked. I knew that I had to pivot now. And so
Yes.
I did. And so I did stuff that I had never done before. I became a social media guy. I mean, believe it or not, I'm a horse on TikTok. You know,
That's amazing.
I mean YouTube. I'm
Mhm.
out there on YouTube, and I did stuff that I did not know how to do. I'm sure I don't do it correctly, but it doesn't matter. I'm putting
You just got
content
to
out.
get out there. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imperfect action is the way to go. So,
Yeah.
I followed my gut and I committed to it. And it was just no way I was not going to do it. And so, and she didn't. And the
Hmm.
pipeline eventually ran out. We had
Yeah.
our last closing in our short sale pipeline at the end of August.
Wow.
She has not had a closing since.
Ethical. And this is another important lesson, listeners, especially those of you who, own your own businesses, and there are quite a few of you out there. You still have to be a very strong leader
Hmm.
of your business, and you have to understand your industry, see where the trends are going, connect those dots, and try your best to have, like you said, plan B, C, and D to
Hmm.
try something new to pivot for longevity. Otherwise, it'll be like your partner, and you get caught
Yeah.
a little bit too late and find yourselves, without any revenue coming in.
That's right. And
Yeah.
it's sad. And, I didn't throw her to the bus. I mean, I'm helping
Yeah.
her.
I hear you.
She's working with me now on the
Yeah.
trust. It's just
Yeah.
she's 6 months late,
Yeah.
and she's where I was at 6 months ago. And that's she's going to have some lean time still until she can start generating a revenue. And the revenue will come and it will be great for her. But she's
Right.
got 6 more months minimum before she hits that point.
Right. But she's
Yeah.
got to stay consistent and do what you
Yeah.
did
Mhm.
and get her name out there in that area.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to leave out of here without you giving more information about your advisory service and if people want to talk to you more about setting up trusts. What
Yeah.
kind of services do you provide?
Well, I give free strategy sessions for anybody who wants one. Just have to reach out to me, and we'll talk about what your situation is, and I can go through and show you how this trust will help you legally reduce your taxes, give you the asset protection you need, and so forth. People ask me, well, how much does it cost? I said, honestly, it depends on what your situation is. I mean, because there's a basic trust, and I have other things that have to work with the more sophisticated your business is. However, there's always a solution because this is if the ultra rich use it, I mean, surely, that we can find something that works for you. And I do apologize for calling you Shirley. But yes. So listen, I have no pretension. I'm not a pretentious person. I
Yes.
don't care if you have my phone number. I'll give you my phone number. It's 407-902-7827. Text me and we can set up a time. I mean, literally, I've had that same number. People in foreclosure call me. People for the trust call me and text me. It's fine. That's
It's
what
out
it's there
there.
for. I'm not
Yeah.
hiding anything. I'm not hiding from creditors or whatever. So reach out to me. Send me a text, and we can definitely talk. And it will
Okay.
blow you away if you are open to something that is not where the herd is. The
Yes.
herd goes one way. The real opportunity goes this way.
That's
And
true.
so, in my job, my responsibility to you is to show you that it is absolutely legal and what the advantages are and why. And then at that point in time, you have a choice. You can go left, you can go right, and there's no wrong choice per se. A lot of people do really well and they pay lots of taxes and they're good with that. This is another way, and it's more profitable for you because listen, at the end of the day, it's not what you make; it's what you keep.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
if you
excellent.
look at your business as a bucket
Yeah.
and you're pouring income into it, the leaks are mostly in taxes, and for a lot of people lately, it's health insurance.
Yes.
So I can show you not only how you can lower your taxes to amazingly low numbers, but also how you can save as much as 70% on your insurance if you have a business owner. So
That's
lots
amazing.
of plugging of leaks that I can show you.
I love the plugging of leaks, and I would be remiss if my didn't follow my legal team's recommendation. I must say I'm not a tax expert
Yeah,
myself. We don't, neither Don nor I guarantee
right.
anything, but it is an avenue, a legal avenue that you can pursue and factor into your full financial picture.
Yes.
We will have information about Don, how to reach him, definitely in the show notes as well. And so, Don, I can't let you leave here without our final segment, which is called Full Disclosure.
Okay.
We will not put you on the spot, but just wanted you to share just a few fun facts about yourself. And so, my first question for you is how do you like to decompress when you're not making your millions?
For me, it used to be tennis, and
Hmm,
unfortunately, as I've gotten older, I played sports my entire life. It was a full ride scholarship for baseball. I played football. I mean, my arm is a noodle from all the tennis I used to play tournaments. In Russia, I'd play for money, which was fun.
really?
Imagine putting down $1,000 as an entry fee, and the winner gets 70%, and you're over in Russia as an American playing about how that was like. That was fun. But anyway, I played so much that I can't. My body's shot as far as that stuff goes. So I
Oh,
pivoted to travel.
okay,
Travel
travel.
is travel is where I decompress. In fact, I'm planning a trip right now to go to Ireland. I mean, I've been all over Europe. I speak Finnish, I speak Russian, I speak German. I love to go to Europe, and that's really how I decompress.
Love that. Love that. I think you and I have that in common. I kind of call myself a citizen of the world, although, based in Atlanta, but have traveled to probably over 30 something countries and
You
just
got
love,
me.
you got me beat, I believe, but that's wonderful. Let me also ask you this. What is something that people sometimes get wrong about you if they don't know
Oh,
you well?
they don't know me very well. First of all, I have a very dry sense of humor that sometimes people take me seriously when I was a big Monty Python fan growing up. And so the British humor just speaks to me. And so one of my favorite things is to start out saying something completely natural and logical and then
Yeah.
slowly get more and more absurd. And so they tend to say, wait a minute. Because and then I'll
You're
talk,
not serious. Wait.
you're so serious. So what's what makes it fun, But yeah,
Right.
they tend to think they don't get my humor very often sometimes. And so my wife is constantly telling me, don't say jokes, don't tell jokes. I said, Linda, I can't. I'm not in control of it. It just sometimes comes out. Another reason why I should be my own boss and not work for someone because I get myself in trouble sometimes.
Well, sometimes it's good trouble, as
Yeah,
John Lewis likes to say. You have a
yes,
lot
it
of
is.
fun with the
Yes,
trouble.
yes, in the good trouble.
All right, Don. I literally blinked and time has passed
Okay.
so quickly, but there were a ton of nuggets of information for our listeners. I thank you once again for your gift of time, and thank you for being on the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Awesome. And listeners, we look forward to having you again join our next episode. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share with friends so that we can all have a great discussion on the next topic of conversation. And we'll check you out next episode. Take care. Bye bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Dohn Thornton, CEO of HB Funding Incorporated. Links to his bio, his entry into our leadership playbook, and additional resources can be found in the show notes on your favorite podcast platform of choice or at leadyourgamepodcast.com. And now for Karen's take on today's topic of spendthrift trusts. Well, first of all, I just want to make sure I direct you all to IRS code 643. If you look in your search engines and go to that, that will give all the real details and updates based on the current tax code. But I wanted to remind you that one of the main objectives of estate planning is the protection and preservation of your legacy. By placing mechanisms in place in order to keep your property and assets intact, you're making sure that you can pass on as much as your assets as you can to your loved ones. Just know that trusts serve as a powerful tool that can protect your loved ones from the temptation of spending too much, after you unfortunately pass away. And it also helps them to avoid poor financial decisions. Now, I must reiterate this disclaimer that I am not a financial planner of any kind, and you should always consult your own personal CPA, tax accountant, and lawyer before making any big financial decisions. However, I do recommend that you learn more about this tax shelter and just know that some of the common benefits of trusts can be, number one, protecting your estate from negligent spending habits. Also, number two, they can help distribute assets incrementally instead of all at once to those who you are being the benefactor to. Third, trust can help protect assets from your beneficiaries' creditors. And then fourth, trust can bypass probate altogether if they're established during your lifetime. And just remember that a spendthrift trust can be irrevocable or revocable. A revocable trust can be modified, whereas an irrevocable trust cannot. And although some grantors might prefer the flexibility of a revocable trust, irrevocable trusts offer more protection against taxes and probate. And spendthrift trusts can, be managed by a trustee. The grantor can appoint themselves as a trustee, if they establish the trust during their lifetime, but they also must make sure that they appoint a trustee to take over upon their passing. So I will include a few additional resources in the show notes to jumpstart your research, but I encourage you to start with your professional advisors to get all the details before you make such an important decision. And if you like a beneficiary, you know what? You can always consider me. Just kidding. But anyway, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Take care. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.